My name is Dr. Alexander Martin. I am 42 years old. I died for 6 minutes. 6 minutes of nothing, no breath, no heartbeat, nothing but an endless void that I cannot explain. When I came back, I wasn't the same. I couldn't explain what happened to me, but I knew one thing for certain. What I experienced was real. I was working, just like any other day, but that day changed everything. I felt it first. The temperature in the lab seemed to drop, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't like the air conditioning kicking in. No, it was colder than that. Colder than the sterile environment should have been. It was as if the world had frozen around me. I tried to shake it off, but something felt wrong. I was hunched over my desk, running simulations on a substance I had spent months researching, a compound that could revolutionize medicine, or so I thought. The clock ticked on, the only sound in the quiet lab. I had been in this place for hours, no distractions, no human connection, just me and my work. I had shut everything else out. Then everything went silent. The hum of the machine stopped, the ticking of the clock gone. It felt as though the very air had been sucked out of the room, and then I heard them. Screams, not distant, like on the other side of the wall. No, these screams were right beside me. I froze. My mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe I was hearing things. Maybe I was just overworked, but the screams grew louder. They were sharp, filled with agony, desperate. I turned around and I saw them. Dark figures, demonic in nature, shadows swirling around the room, almost as if they were alive. They were tormenting people, real people, faces twisted in eternal pain. I couldn't look away, even though I wanted to. There were people, unbelievers I think, dragged by the dark figures, being pulled into a vortex. Their cries pierced my soul. I felt their pain. It was as if their fear, their hopelessness, was wrapping around my chest, squeezing until I could hardly breathe. And then, a voice whispered, "This is where you belong." It wasn't just the words, it was the certainty in them, the cold truth that I had never questioned before. I had always been a man of reason, a scientist, a man who believed only in what could be seen, touched, or measured. But this was real. This was happening. I felt my heart pounding, my legs giving way beneath me. The world around me started to crumble, like reality itself was falling apart. The ground beneath my feet was no longer solid. I was falling, or rather being dragged. The shadows were closing in on me. I felt the heat of flames licking at my skin. This is the end, I thought. This is where it all ends. And just as I thought I would be consumed, just as the darkness swallowed me whole, I woke up. I gasped for air, my body trembling, sweat soaked into my clothes. I looked around. I was still in my lab, still at my desk. The machines were running, the clock ticked, but the horror I felt, the agony I had seen, it was all still there, etched into my mind. Was it a dream, or was it something else? Something real? I didn't know, but it felt too real. Before that day, my life seemed perfect. Everything was within my control. Everything made sense. But that day, I realized there was something out there, something beyond anything I could ever understand. I was always a man of logic, a man who believed in science, numbers, and data. Nothing else made sense to me. I had spent my life trying to understand the world through reason, my work consumed by my pursuit of knowledge. As a researcher in toxicology, I had built my career by studying poisons, substances that could kill with a single drop, compounds that most people never even thought about. I had no time for distractions, no time for relationships. My colleagues would joke about my obsession with work, but they didn't understand. They didn't know what it felt like to be on the brink of discovery, to be so close to finding something that could change the world. My lab was my sanctuary, my only refuge from the chaos of life outside. I didn't need friends. I didn't need family. I didn't even have a belief system. It was simple, really. If you couldn't see it, touch it, measure it, then it didn't exist. And God? Well, I had no use for the idea of God. Faith wasn't something I needed. My world was black and white. Science was the only truth I needed. But something changed that day, something I can't explain. Something beyond anything I had ever known or understood. I remember the first time I encountered the substance I was researching that day, the compound that led to the dream, to the near-death experience. It was a highly toxic substance, capable of shutting down the body's most vital organs within minutes. A lethal dose, but controlled in small quantities. It had potential in medical applications. If harnessed, it could save lives. But my mind, ever curious, never stopped at the surface. I pushed further. obsessing over the possibilities, its potential to cure, or its potential to destroy. I studied it for hours on end, ignoring the warning signs, ignoring the fatigue creeping in. I became more and more absorbed. My colleagues said I was going too far. They warned me about the risks, the unknowns, but I was too focused on the work. I thought I was invincible, that nothing could touch me. One night, after another long day in the lab, I had a moment of clarity, or what I thought was clarity. I felt the substance stirring in my mind, a pull that I couldn't ignore. It was like an invisible force, drawing me closer to it, urging me to understand it completely. And then in that moment, I felt it. My vision blurred, my chest tightened. I realized I had been exposed to a dangerous I panicked. I stumbled for the door, but the room spun around me. The world tilted. My heart raced as I collapsed to the floor, the cold tile pressing against my cheek. I tried to scream, but the sound was lost in the growing silence. Then it hit me. This was it. This was the end. My mind was racing, but my body was shutting down, and in the quiet, just before the darkness swallowed me, I saw something I can never forget. I saw the shadows again, the dark figures pulling at the souls of those who had rejected truth, tormenting them in ways I could never have imagined. And in that moment, I understood. I understood what they were. I understood what they had done, and I understood my place among them. But as the darkness consumed me, as the cold crept into my bones, something shifted. I was torn from that place, yanked from the abyss, and into nothing. And then I woke up. My eyes fluttered open, and I found myself lying on the cold, sterile floor of my lab, gasping for air. The machines around me hummed, the clock ticking, the world as I knew it, carrying on. But something was different. Everything felt off. I wasn't sure what I had just experienced, but it had changed me. Was it a dream? I didn't know. All I knew was that I had been shown something beyond my understanding. I could still hear the screams, feel the pull of the shadows. They were real, and somehow, I knew I couldn't ignore them. The next few days were a blur. I was alive, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been broken inside me. The dream, or whatever it was, had rattled me to my core. I told myself it was just stress, just exhaustion from the late hours in the lab, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. It couldn't have been. I kept going to work. I had to. It was all I knew. I threw myself back into my research, trying to drown out the noise in my head. But the more I tried to focus, the more the images from that place haunted me. The shadows, the screaming faces, the feeling of being pulled towards something I wasn't sure I could escape. It gnawed at me, like a constant ache I couldn't ignore. I didn't talk to anyone about it. I couldn't. I wasn't the type to share my feelings. I had no one to talk to, and even if I did, I wasn't sure how to explain it. What could I say? That I had seen hell, that I felt like I was on the brink of something terrible, something I couldn't escape. They'd laugh, or worse, they'd pity me. I was alone, always had been. My colleagues at the lab, they knew me as the brilliant, methodical researcher, the man who didn't let anything distract him, but they didn't know the truth. They didn't know the part of me that feared everything I had just witnessed was real. I remember one day walking into the lab, my mind racing as usual. I didn't even notice her at first. Jenna, a colleague I had worked with on occasion, she was standing by the door, holding a stack of papers. We exchanged brief pleasantries, but I could feel the tension in the air. She had no idea what had just happened to me, but I could see it in her eyes. She noticed something was off. "You okay, Alex?" she asked, her voice soft but with a hint of concern. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, forcing my usual calm demeanor. But inside, I was screaming. I couldn't explain it. Not to her, not to anyone. "Are you sure? You don't look all right." She took a step closer, studying my face. "You're pale." I nodded too quickly, just a little under the weather. "I'll be fine. I just need to get back to work." The words felt empty, even to me. She didn't press further, but I saw the doubt in her eyes. Jenna had always been the type to dig deeper, to challenge the surface, but this time, I was the one who couldn't face the truth. I couldn't tell her about the dream, about the horrors I'd seen. I couldn't tell her how terrified I was that they were real. That's when I realized I was afraid. Afraid of what I had seen, afraid of what it meant. But more than that, I was afraid that I was losing my grip on the world I had always known. The world of science, of reason, of logic, the world that made sense. I wasn't sure what was happening to me, but I couldn't keep running from it. I couldn't keep pretending it was all just a bad dream, because it felt too real, too vivid. And deep inside, I knew something had changed, but I wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. The days after that conversation with Jenna, I felt like I was losing control of my own mind. I tried to focus on my work, but it felt as if something was pulling at me, something I couldn't see but I could feel, a weight pressing down on my chest. The lab, which had always been my sanctuary, now felt like a prison. I was suffocating in the very place that once brought me comfort. I thought about the dream more than I should have. The shadows, the screams, the unbearable heat of the flames that I had felt in my bones. It was always there, lingering at the edge of my thoughts, and the more I pushed it away, the stronger it became. One afternoon, I was working late again. The lab lights flickered as I ran yet another set of simulations, trying to focus on something, anything other than what had happened. The chemicals in front of me seemed distant, as if they were part of someone else's world. I kept hearing the faint whispers in the back of my mind, like distant echoes, but I pushed them aside. I was a scientist, after all. There had to be an explanation, a logical one. But as the clock ticked past midnight, something shifted in me. I felt dizzy, lightheaded, as if my body was slowly losing its connection to the world around me. I reached for my water bottle, but my hand trembled. A sharp pain shot through my head, like a sudden violent pressure pressing down on my skull. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself, but the room began to spin. It happened so quickly. One moment, I was sitting there, trying to breathe through the pain, and the next, the world was fading into black. The lab, the machines, the light, all of it disappeared, as if it had never been there in the first place. A deep silence enveloped me, and then, I felt it, the pull. It was like gravity had shifted, like the very air around me had turned to lead. My body was no longer my own. I wasn't aware of my hands or feet. I wasn't aware of anything physical. There was only the pull, the sensation of being drawn somewhere I couldn't understand. Then I felt it, cold, biting cold, the kind of cold that isn't just on your skin, but inside your bones, deep in your soul. I tried to fight it, to hold on to something, but I couldn't. I couldn't hold on to the familiar world of formulas and data, the world I thought was all there was. And then, I saw it. Hell, not in a symbolic way, not as some abstract idea or figment of my imagination, but in the rawest, most brutal form. I saw the flames. I felt their heat as if they were right in front of me. The flames licked at the souls of those trapped within them, their screams echoing in the vast, endless void. Faces of people I didn't recognize, twisted in agony. But the worst part, I could feel their fear. I could feel their despair, their hopelessness, clawing at me, begging for mercy that never came. I could hear the voice, deep and booming from all directions. This is where you belong. This is where you are headed, and there is no escape. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but I had no voice. I couldn't even move. All I could do was watch as people were dragged by invisible hands, pulled into the darkness, their bodies writhing in pain. And then, a figure stepped forward. It wasn't a demon, not like the others. No, this was something different. A presence, dark, cold, and filled with an unfathomable power. It looked at me, its eyes piercing through me, as if it could see every lie, every sin I had ever committed. You are not different from them, the figure whispered. You may think you are saved, but your soul is just as lost. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. It was as if I was frozen in place, caught in the grip of something far beyond me. The weight of its gaze crushed me, and for the first time, I realized the truth. I wasn't safe. I wasn't beyond the reach of judgment. I wasn't untouchable, like I had always believed. All of my work, all of my knowledge, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered in that place. But then, in the midst of the suffocating fear and overwhelming darkness, something shifted. A light, small at first, began to grow. A soft, warm glow that seemed to pierce through the very shadows of hell. It was gentle at first, like the flicker of a candle in a vast, empty room. But it was real. I could feel it. The warmth, the peace. It was like nothing I had ever known. And in that moment, I understood that this was the presence I had been missing. This was the truth that had eluded me. The figure in the shadows stepped back, and the oppressive cold lifted. I felt myself being pulled away from the flames, pulled back toward the light. The pain, the fear, it was all gone. but just as quickly as the light had appeared, it was gone again. The last thing I felt was the tug, a gentle pull, as if I was being called back, as if I was being given another chance. And then, I woke up. I gasped, my breath sharp in my lungs, as if I had been holding it for hours. I was back in my lab, on the cold tile floor. The machines were humming again, the clock ticking steadily. Everything was just as it had been before, but I wasn't the same. I had seen something I couldn't explain, something that had been beyond my understanding. Was it a dream? Was it a warning? I didn't, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had just changed, that something had been shown to me and I couldn't ignore it. The moment I died was the moment I was shown the truth. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The world felt different, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I woke up in the lab, the sterile light above me blinking as if nothing had changed. The machines were humming, and the clock continued ticking, steady, predictable, but I wasn't the same. In the days that followed, I couldn't escape the sensation that something larger was at play, something I wasn't able to comprehend. I found myself staring at my work charts, formulas, equations, but they all seemed meaningless. I kept replaying the experience over and over in my mind, wondering if it had been real or just some hallucination brought on by stress. But deep down, I knew it was real. And then it happened again. I don't know how to explain it, how to describe it, but I felt it, as if the air around me changed, thickened, and then I saw it, the light. It was the same warm glow I had felt during the NDE, the light that had pulled me out of hell. This time it was different. It wasn't distant. It was right here, right in front of me. But it wasn't just light. There was a presence behind it, something I couldn't see with my eyes, but I could feel it, surrounding me, watching me. "Alex," a voice called out, soft, yet commanding. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. I couldn't move. It wasn't a voice I recognized, but I knew it. I knew it like I knew the sound of my own thoughts. It was kind, but there was power in it, immeasurable power. "Do you understand?" the voice asked. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. It was as though I had no voice to offer, no words that could express what was happening to me. But the voice wasn't waiting for an answer. It spoke again as if reading my thoughts. "You have been shown a truth that your mind is too small to grasp in full, but you must try, for your life has been a lie." The words hit me like a hammer, and I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to argue. I wanted to deny it. I was a scientist, a man who had built his entire life around facts, around what could be measured and proven. But this couldn't be measured. This was something beyond my comprehension. "Look at your life, Alex," the voice said. "What have you done? What have you created? What have you truly built?" I wanted to protest, to tell the voice that I had accomplished so much, that I had dedicated my life to science, to the pursuit of knowledge. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain. The weight of those words crushed me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my life had been consumed by the pursuit of things that didn't matter. I had spent years in the lab, creating compounds, researching chemicals, but I had never truly created anything meaningful. I had never built relationships, never opened myself to the world outside of my work. "Do you see?" the voice whispered. "The time you've spent. What have you really given the world?" I was no longer in the lab. I wasn't even in my body anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere vast and empty, like I was floating in a sea of light. But as I looked back at my life, I saw it. My arrogance, my pride, my utter disregard for anything beyond my research. I saw the years I had wasted, the people I had shut out, the heartaches I had ignored. And then, in that moment, I felt it, a profound sorrow, a realization that I had spent my life chasing the wrong things. It wasn't about knowledge. It wasn't about being the best. It wasn't about anything I had built in the lab. It was about love. It was about connection. It was about the things that matter when life is on the line. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "You have been given another chance, not to continue as you were, but to change, to see the world as it truly is. The light around me seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat. I felt something shift inside me as if the very fibers of my being were being restructured, and for the first time, I felt it. Peace. Real, unexplainable peace. The fear, the anxiety, the weight of my past failures, they all melted away. This is your moment of truth, Alex. Do you accept it? The question hung in the air. I had no answer at first. I had no words, but as I stood there, as I floated there, I knew the truth. I couldn't go back. I couldn't keep living in the world of logic and data. I had to embrace something greater, something beyond the confines of science. And then, the light faded, the voice silent. I was left in the stillness, alone but not alone. I had been shown something I couldn't unsee, something that had changed me forever. I woke up to the beep of a heart monitor. The sound was steady, rhythmic. It was the kind of noise that should have comforted me, but it didn't. It felt wrong, like I had missed something crucial. My eyes fluttered open and I was met with the harsh fluorescent light of a hospital room, the sterile impersonal walls, the smell of antiseptic, the quiet shuffle of footsteps outside the door. It all felt too real, too ordinary, but I wasn't ordinary. I couldn't, not after what I had just experienced. I lifted my hand, feeling the cold, metal wristband around my wrist. Patient, Dr. Alexander Martin, age 42. The reminder of my identity hit me like a slap in the face, but I didn't feel like the same man, not anymore. I sat up slowly, my body aching as though I had been through a battle. My head throbbed, and my chest felt tight. I looked around trying to make sense of it. The lab, the chemicals, the research, it all seemed so distant now, like a past life I had left behind. What had happened? Was it real? Was it just a dream? I could still feel it. The warmth of the light, the cold grip of the shadows, the heavy weight of my own guilt. I could still hear the voices, the ones that had whispered to me, showing me the truth that had been hidden from me my whole life. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to center myself, but the memories flooded in, the flames, the screams, the overwhelming sense of dread. I could still see their faces, the people in the ones whose lives had been consumed by darkness. Their cries still echoed in my mind, relentless. I felt a deep sinking guilt, as if I was somehow complicit in their torment. I had spent my life chasing knowledge, chasing success, but I had ignored the one thing that truly mattered: people, relationships, love, forgiveness. And then I remembered the voice, the one that had asked me if I understood. Your life has been a lie. The weight of those words hit me again. It wasn't just about the research. It wasn't just about the science. It was about something bigger, something I couldn't explain, but I knew I had been shown. I had been shown a world beyond the one I could see with my eyes, beyond what I could measure and prove. I looked down at my hands, the hands that had touched so many chemical compounds, but had never reached out to someone in need. The hands that had built theories but had never built connections. I wondered, for the first time, if any of my work had ever truly mattered, or had I been wasting my life consumed by the wrong things. I felt a wave of guilt and sorrow wash over me. I had been blind to the things that mattered, blind to the people around me. I had rejected everything that didn't fit into my neat, scientific worldview. But in that moment, as I sat there in the sterile hospital room, something changed inside me. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I felt it, a shift, a longing to be different, to be more than just a man of logic. A desire to understand, to reach out, to be open to the things I had once dismissed. And then a new thought hit me, the thought that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't been given this second chance for nothing. Maybe it wasn't just about avoiding death, but about embracing life, embracing the things I had ignored all these years. I closed my eyes, trying to focus, trying to listen. I didn't know who or what had spoken to me in that other place, but I felt something there, something more than just an idea, a presence. I didn't know if it was God or the universe, or something else entirely, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the same man I had been before. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure where this new path would lead me, but I knew I had to take it. I had to find out what it all meant, what I was meant to do now. I wasn't sure how to start, but I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. Not after everything I had seen, not after everything I had felt. The change had begun, and there was no turning back. I couldn't keep it in any longer. I had been walking around in a fog, pretending everything was fine, pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I had to share this. I had to tell someone what had happened to me, even if they didn't believe it. So I called Jenna. She picked up after the second ring. "Alex, are you okay? You've been acting so strange lately." I took a deep breath. "I don't know if I'm okay. I don't think I'll ever be okay again. Not after what happened to me." There was a long pause. I could tell she was trying to process my words. "What do you mean, Alex? What happened?" "Jenna," I paused, trying to gather my thoughts. "I saw hell." The words hung in the air like a weight neither of us could lift. Jenna didn't speak at first, and I couldn't blame her. Who would? Who would believe such a thing? Hell, a place most people dismiss as a myth or metaphor. How could I convince her that it was as real as the lab I had spent my life in? "I was there, Jenna," I continued. "I saw it with my own eyes. People, they were being tortured. The pain was unimaginable. I could feel it, deep in my chest. Their screams, their terror, it was endless, and I almost became one of them." I felt the chill crawl back into my bones, the memory flooding me again, the heat of the flames, the screams, the cold hand of judgment reaching out to pull me in. "Jenna?" I was about to be thrown into it. I was right there, and then this light, this pure, warm light, saved me. It pulled me back away from the flames. The silence stretched between us, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was thick with disbelief, but also with something else. Maybe hope, maybe curiosity. I didn't know. "Alex," she whispered, her voice soft. "Are you telling me that you saw hell? For real?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I don't know how to explain it, but it was real. It was so real, and I have to know what it means. Why was I shown this? Why was I saved when so many others are left behind? Jenna was quiet for a long time. I could hear her thinking, processing, maybe even questioning my sanity. I wouldn't blame her for that. But then she surprised me. "I don't know what to say, Alex," she said, her voice shaky. "But I think I know someone who can help you. A pastor. He's a friend of mine. Maybe he can explain what this means. Maybe he can help you make sense of." I felt a mix of relief and fear. A pastor. I wasn't sure what I expected, but it certainly wasn't this. I didn't believe in God. I didn't even know where to begin with something like this. But something inside me knew that this was my only chance to understand. Jenna gave me the pastor's contact, and without thinking twice, I called him the next morning. His name was Pastor John, and his voice was calm, warm, full of something I couldn't quite place. "I've been told you've seen something, Alex," he said as if he had been waiting for my call, "and I believe you. The truth you're seeking, it's not just in your mind, it's in your heart." He set up a meeting, and when I walked into his office, I was filled with a mixture of skepticism and desperation. I had seen hell. I had been saved by a light. But why? Why me? Pastor John listened as I poured my heart out to him, telling him everything. How I had seen people suffering, how I had felt my soul being dragged toward that eternal torment, and how the light had pulled me away. He didn't interrupt. He didn't question. He simply listened. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and spoke softly. "Alex," he said, "hell is real. The suffering you saw is real, and the light you saw, that was God's mercy. That was the grace he showed you. He spared you for a reason." I felt tears well up in my eyes, tears I hadn't allowed myself to shed. "But why me? I'm not worthy. I've done nothing to deserve that kind of mercy." "You're right," Pastor John said, his voice steady. "None of us are worthy, but that's the point. God's grace isn't about being worthy, it's about his love for us, even when we're lost." You were shown hell so that you could know the truth. You were saved so that you could tell others, to warn them, to make them see what's at stake. And that's when it hit me. The reason I had been spared, it wasn't just to escape the flames, it was to share the truth, to tell the world that hell was real, that people were suffering, and that there was a way out, there was salvation. I have to share this, I said, the words tumbling out of me. I have to warn people. I can't just sit here and pretend nothing happened. I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw. Pastor John nodded. That's why you're here, Alex, to share your story, to let people know that there's hope, that they don't have to end up in that place. I left his office that day with a burning purpose inside me, a purpose I could no longer ignore. I knew I had to share my message. Hell is real. It's not just an. People need to know the truth before it's too late. And so I began. I told my story to anyone who would listen. I posted it online, shared it with friends, family, strangers. I didn't care what people thought. I knew what I had seen, and I would make sure that no one would have to face what I saw. I used to believe that life was about control. It was about mastering the things I could see, touch, and measure. I spent years chasing knowledge, running experiments, reading, study. I thought that if I could explain the world, I would understand it. I thought that if I could figure out the science of it all, I would have all the answers. But the truth is, no amount of science could have prepared me for what I saw. No equation could explain the depth of the pain I witnessed in hell. No formula could explain the overwhelming relief I felt when the light pulled me away from the flames. And no research could explain the peace I felt when I realized that there was something greater than everything I had ever believed in. Hell is real. I know that now, and I know that no one is immune. We can't outrun it. We can't ignore it. But what we can do is make a choice to live differently, to seek the truth, to embrace the love and mercy that we've been given, even when we don't deserve it. I have spent my life seeking answers, but this was the answer I was looking for. When I woke up in that hospital bed after everything I had seen, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't keep living as if nothing had changed. I couldn't keep pretending that hell was just a myth. I couldn't keep running from the truth. The light I saw, that was God's mercy. He saved me from something I didn't deserve, and He showed me the truth I wasn't ready to see. But I'm here now, and I'm telling you this because I don't want anyone to face what I think. I don't want anyone to experience the terror I saw, to feel the hopelessness of eternal separation from everything good. You don't have to go there. There is a way out. There is a choice you can make. You can choose light. You can choose to turn away from the things that pull you down into darkness and walk toward the light. I know it's hard to believe, especially when everything around us tells us to trust only in what we can see. But I'm telling you, there is more. There is something beyond this world, something that waits for all of us. And when we die, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something far greater, or in my case, something far worse. I don't know why I was chosen to see this. Maybe it was to give me a maybe it was to give me a story that would wake people up before it's too late. But I can't keep it to myself anymore. I have to share what I've seen. I have to let people know that hell is real, and that God is merciful. So I'm asking you, if you've heard my story, if you've felt the weight of it in your heart, don't ignore it. Don't let it be just another story you forget in a few days. Take it seriously. Look at your life. What are you living for? What are you chasing? I'm not saying that you have to have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. But I know one thing for sure. There's a light. And that light is a way out. It's a way to escape the flames. A way to escape the torment. You can choose life. You can choose the light. And if you make that choice, you'll never have to experience what I did. Hell is real, but so is salvation. And now, I leave you with this. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Isaiah 55:8. You can make a choice. Don't wait. The time is now. I've felt the burning fear, the unrelenting screams, and the darkness that traps souls forever. I was almost one of them, but I was saved by a light.
a light that pulled me out when I least deserved it. Now, I'm asking you, what would you do if you knew hell was real? What if your worst nightmare wasn't just a dream? What if it was a warning? Have you ever had a dream that felt so real, so vivid, that you questioned if it was just a dream or something more? Is it possible that our dreams show us glimpses of the truth, things we can't explain with science? I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but I'm here to challenge you. Is hell just a myth, or is there a real danger that we need to face? As the Bible says, the soul who sins is the one who will die. Ezekiel 18:20. We have a choice. Drop a comment below. What do you think happens after we die? Have you experienced something that shook you to your core? Let's talk about it. Don't ignore the sign. Share your thoughts, and let's dig into what's real.